Listen, welcome to LME Streams, the casual live show where we talk about all of the movies that have come out this week. Always logging in everything to see which streaming service has the best one, right? And this week, I would say that it is the virtual cinemas, all stuff that is rentals, but stuff that you can watch from the comfort of your own home. I do think Amazon Prime had a knockout of a movie, one of my favorites. Netflix, they stayed true to what they said. They said one movie a week, Zach, and they're going to keep to that promise even if they may not be the best movies. We have WandaVision over on Disney Plus, and then some HBO Max stuff. But as always, a really big shout out to the live chat who watches us. Always appreciating everything that you guys do, especially as we wait. We fix copyright. We're trying to get back to the bigger LME videos, but we appreciate everybody who keeps tuning in on this weekly show. And because of that, we wanted to give some free stuff. You know, why not? So one of the first stuff that we have over here, for those of you who are interested, just like that, just for tuning in, whoever wants to redeem it, you got yourself all of the music that you can listen to at home. Over on Apple Music. I think it's like for a month or something for free. There you go. Just a thank you for all of you guys who have been watching over here on the show. We appreciate it. Tuning in just to talk about movies. So, Zach, anything that stood out to you in particular this week when it comes to the virtual cinema?
You know, I think the random dropping of a movie shot during quarantine on HBO Max and basically nobody talking about it,
right?
Kind of interesting to me. But yeah, there's a lot of cool movies that maybe had a previous release in theaters or in some limited capacity that are now much more available than they previously were, that are really interesting. You know, films that we caught up with at different film festivals that are finally going to be available to the public. So I'm excited to talk about those movies.
Let's start off with the biggest one. Promising Young Woman. We're not going to get into spoilers here because we're going to have an entire video for that coming up. But Zach, I think we both like this movie right here. I think both of us really loved it back at Sundance, even though I had told you, Zach, don't watch it at Sundance because it's going to come out. It did get delayed. And while it did have its little theatrical run, it was dope to see that they finally have it out on VOD. So you could rent it right now for what I believe is like $19.99. You hear us talk about this all the time. You know, is it worth the rental? But now it's like a two-time rental, right? Is it worth a $19.99 rental or a $4.99 rental? I'm telling you right now, this is for the combo price. This is worth the combo price right here. $19 is nothing for one of the best movies of the year. This is one of my favorite thrillers. This is one movie that it has a message to it, and it perfectly intertwines with the genre that it's about. We have an intercut, a little Let Us Explain that we're working on that's going to be coming out. I absolutely love this movie, and I fell in love with Emerald Fennell as a director. I believe she's going to be one to watch for. I think Carey Mulligan was fantastic in the movie, as well as Bo Burnham. The soundtrack's fantastic, and it's a thriller that I believe should be on everybody's radar.
Yeah, agree with you on just about everything you said there. Back over on Intercut Pod, we recently put out our favorite movies of the year, and spoiler, this is high up on my list. I really, really loved this film. I think it's just a really interesting combination of different elements. A lot of people have talked about the ways in which it feels inspired by Korean revenge films. I can totally see that. I think the interpretations of the of rape culture and what it's trying to say about that through a flawed protagonist is so interesting. This is just a great movie that you can sit down and like discuss with people. Like, if we were in a different time period, I'd love to go with a few friends to see this and then go to and just sit and argue about the movie. But it's also very entertaining, as you mentioned, as a thriller. It's a good comedy with people like Bo Burnham and Sam Richardson and what's his name from the OC showing up in supporting roles.
Oh, Adam Brody,
Adam Brody. But of course, like you mentioned, Carey Mulligan is just so good here in a performance that's so different from what I think we normally expect from her.
Yeah. Again, we're going to have a whole spoiler podcast that we're going to be releasing over on Intercut with Amanda the Jedi, who I know made her video right now. She really liked it. I think I may have dropped her off for the screening at Sundance. This was one of the hardest ones to get into at Sundance. And it was one of those that ended up taking an entire year to come out, but we absolutely loved it. I would highly recommend this one, even at that $19.99 price point. It definitely gives you a lot to talk about.
Yeah, and a lot of people in the chat seem to have seen it and definitely mixed opinions because this is a movie that's going to elicit mixed opinions. I can't imagine having like a very soft reaction to
No,
some of this material.
absolutely not.
But Anna Maria said no spoilers, but wow, that thing at the end was very brave from Fennel. I
Yeah,
was 100% sure she wouldn't do it until it actually happened. Yeah, I mean, it's a movie that keeps you kind of guessing throughout.
yeah. Put this one on your radar. Even if you wait for it to be on streaming it to get it at a lower price, it's going to be one that a lot of people are going to have opinions about. And hey, if a movie gets you talking, then it's worth it. Another one that got people talking, or maybe didn't want people to get talking, is this entire run of incredible docs that are available at home.
Yes.
When I look, as you know, this is all about comparing what streaming service has the best because it's going to get down to the point where I was watching the playoff games, and do you think they were showing me trailers for movies? They were showing me trailers for like Netflix, for HBO. Like it's the services now. But these aren't on services. These are movies that are worth renting on their own. Assassins, a movie that we were able to catch. Did you catch it at Sundance, or were you able to catch it after the fact?
No, I caught that one at Sundance.
Oh, okay. Did they tell you at your screening that you should be
Oh, yeah,
careful?
sorry. Wait, no, I'm mixing it up with Casa. I was just looking at two things at once. No, that one I didn't watch at Sundance. That one I caught more recently. That one Caitlin caught at Sundance. But yeah, uh, definitely another in the category of documentaries we've been seeing recently that make you more paranoid about the world around us than you maybe
Literally.
previously were.
When we were watching this at the screening at Sundance, the director literally said, one, he might have released it earlier, depending on the contents of what's happening in the doc, which covers an assassination and whether that was all true, whether someone is lying, whether it was a prank show. Like when we were sitting there, they literally told us, "Be careful, you may be on a watch list," right? And I apologize to the listeners because I know last time we already talked about the dissident, and now we got another one over here, but this one is just as great. It's a gripping tale. I love the way that it's told. The crazy part about it is that it wouldn't have been possible without being able to obtain the CCTV footage of this, what you're looking at right there, where the assassination happened. This is one that I would highly recommend, and I believe right now it is available to rent, maybe even purchase. I know I was gonna pick this one up. Look at that. $7.99 to purchase, $3.99 to rent. I'd say this one is definitely worth the rental.
Definitely.
I'm not sure where they're going to put it in streaming services because just like we talked about with the previous doc, this is one where a lot of streaming services did not want to pick it up because of certain deals they're making in other countries, because of the subject matter. And that should tell you that it's talking about stuff that's getting to the nitty gritty. But I highly recommend Assassins, another Sundance pick that I really enjoyed. And this is a filmmaker who's worked on some great docs. So just another one to his list that I would highly recommend. I don't know if you had anything else to add to Assassins.
Yeah, just an amazing true story. One of those things that's hard to believe, like stranger than fiction. If you had written it into a script, nobody would believe it, but it actually happened. The story of these women who assassinated the brother of Kim Jong Un without even realizing they had done it. It's
It's crazy.
it's crazy, and the actual film and unfolding of events lives up to that crazy premise, if that's what you want to call it. It feels weird to call this real life situation a premise.
Yeah, but reality and fiction are becoming like they're so blurred at this point. It's like WandaVision, but in real life. Really quick as we go to the other ones, a big shout out to Ashby. Appreciate the shout out on the super chat. Appreciate that. Says love your content. Well, love you for watching. Thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Another one to definitely check out. One that is more than listening. A Casa My Home. Another Sundance doc that I believe won the cinematography award, and it earns it completely. You got to catch this one too, Zach. Talk about it.
Yeah, this is one that I caught at Sundance and you didn't, and I've been like pressuring you since I got the chance to see it to find it somewhere because it is such a beautifully filmed doc about this family that's kind of living in this forested area on the outskirts of Bucharest, and kind of what happens when the Romanian government decides to develop that land and sort of move them from their home, both as a commentary on the way that we treat these kinds of natural spaces and nature, as well as this fascinating story about this family who grows up in a very unique situation and is suddenly thrust into the real world, if that's what you want to
Mm-hmm.
call it. I've compared it to the Wolfpack, the Crystal Moselle documentary from a few years ago, which is similarly about an isolated family that it gets opened up to what the real world is like. And I think it's just such a well put together film. It's fascinating but also beautifully shot. So yeah, one of the standout documentaries of last and I guess technically this year.
Yeah. So this one is available, I believe, in virtual cinema. So you're not going to find it so much on VOD, but if you go to your local indie cinema and you check out their website, they might have it available there to rent. And that's dope because that means that some of the money goes to the theaters as well right now that they're closed.
Mm-hmm.
But interestingly enough, I don't have it mentioned over here, but let me see if I can pull it up right here really quick. Theaters reopened. I don't know if they reopened in your area, but for us, they started reopening, and there was this little movie called The Marksman, only in theaters. In my notes, I always write virtual, I always write on demand. Liam Neeson out with another one. I have not caught this one, but if anyone has, definitely let us know in the chat. As we're talking about movie theaters and virtual ones and not. The Marksman is out in theaters, but there's a lot of these from Across My Home, as well as this other documentary that we have over here called MLK FBI that you can watch from the comfort of your own home and still support movie theaters. This one was one that I was really excited for in the fall festivals, and I was hoping that I was going to be able to get a link for it, and I found it to be really fascinating. And hey, out just in time for Martin Luther King Day, which is today. It is a great look at the FBI and the relationship that they had not only with Martin Luther King Jr., but like how they were able to have all these resources and like what would you even say? Like there was no supervision on how deep they got.
Yeah, it's so uh, damning and comprehensive and fascinating. Just the way in which Martin Luther King became this subject of paranoid fascination for a certain sector of, CIA and FDR and I don't know, or excuse me, Hoover.
You
But
had a crush on him.
yeah, it's just such a thorough and detailed documenting of that history, and involving some of the most important figures of the last century in this country. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is, I've talked about this before on Intercut, but it's one of those stories that you know about, kind of like you've heard people mention it, but to get this kind of deep dive into the situation, it's revealing a whole side that I had no real idea about for many of the people involved.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's a fascinating look. It's even it does a great job at getting a lot of like the best quotes that Malcolm said, especially ones that people have seemed to have forgotten and they only want to quote certain ones. But it even tells you that there's still files that have not been unclassified yet that are, and I believe in a couple of years are still going to be coming out. So this is still an ongoing story, but I thought it was a fascinating look at how he wasn't looked as the hero who we're literally honoring today on Martin Luther King Day. Back then, he was considered like everything was up against him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great look, not just at history, but at that period in time and how people were thinking in retrospect. So MLK FBI, I highly recommend that one, and you can watch it at your virtual cinema and support your local theaters. The final one, which I believe is out also in virtual cinemas, and you can rent it. You liked this one, didn't you?
I mean, talk about well shot documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
This one just comes out with a bang. Lance Oppenheimer, Oppenheim. I don't even know, but what is he, like 25 years old?
I
in this
mean,
documentary?
the thing is, this dude was able to get Darren Aronofsky to produce this. This is a man who's been working. I'm not sure they'll appear here, but a lot of his stuff is like long-term parking. Is about this like dude who's, I believe this is the LAX one. Like it's a whole group of people who are living in places that not many people pay attention to, and he likes to make all of these documentaries documenting these interesting locations. And Some Kind of Heaven is a very interesting location because it's an entire place where it's only older people and like no younger people are allowed. But is that a great thing for them as they retire, or is it just more of the same? And you're right, beautifully shot.
Yeah, and like you said, he picks these fascinating subjects, and I think it's interesting because it's a movie that doesn't have a lot of forced commentary on it. It's trying to just show you these characters and these pretty disparate characters. You know,
Hmm.
they don't cross paths really. They just all happen to be a part of this community. But in giving you these slices of life, you get this interesting examination of the kind of purgatory that a retirement community can be.
Yeah. So again, this is a very interesting one. Got the approval from one Darren Aronofsky. Beautifully shot. It's interesting to see it expand as well, because while it's talking about the people who are in this community, it's also talking about how they are allowing it to grow and grow and grow. So that's more of a place in Florida. We already know it as a retirement state, but it seems like you can only be retired there for a certain portion of it. But fascinating. I'm interested to see what else he does, and I highly recommend the shorts that he's worked on. Like I said, especially
Totally.
that one about the LAX, where people are living in the parking lot and they work at the airport as well. He's doing some really interesting docs, some interesting work there. Two other ones that are out on VOD right now is The Endless Boys. They got another one called Synchronic. And then an interesting little afternoon flick thriller to catch called Don't Tell a Soul. We talked a little bit about this one over on Intercut. We are big fans of Justin and Aaron Moorhead.
Mm-hmm.
I love The Endless. I think Spring's really good. Resolution was one of their first ones that they worked on. Synchronic was good. It's a
Yeah.
decent one.
I feel like I'm a little higher on it than you, but I don't want to oversell it either. I think it's
Half a star
pretty
more than me.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty satisfying genre movie. You know, I think when you engage with ideas like time travel and all that, you there's always going to be like a trade-off in how satisfying the conclusions ultimately are, but I think they do enough with the premise to get you these really fun moments, these, whether it's humorous moments, whether it's a little bit mind-bendy, whether they're ultimately emotional. I think it had enough satisfying beats for me that I would recommend this one if you are into that kind of action sci-fi hybrid. But I know that it definitely has weak points in the script and it maybe is a little bit underdeveloped.
Yeah. Again, I do recommend it if you like the Moorhead and Benson stories. I really love The Endless. I think that's better than this one, but it's cool to see them get a bigger cast, obviously. They got an Avenger in
Yeah.
this one as well. And speaking of Avengers, they signed up, and I think they're doing Moon Knight. So they are all out going over to
Yeah.
the Marvel train, and I hope they do well, because I think they make
Yeah,
very
with the boy
interesting movies.
Oscar Isaac.
Oscar Isaac is Moon Knight?
Yes.
Oh, you didn't tell me that. Okay, wow. Then I am really excited. All right. That's going to be fascinating, because if you know these guys, they're always the directors, and they've usually been the, like in The Endless, it stars themselves and they're directing themselves. So it was interesting to see them move on to bigger actors, and sheesh, I did not know they got that big of an actor.
Yeah.
I'm excited. All right. So if you're interested in catching this one is available to rent, I believe, or I guess not rent, purchase right now. I think definitely worth streaming it. But if you're interested in a little sci-fi flick, maybe rent it. Just know that the characters don't make the best of decisions, but it's an interesting concept,
Yeah, poor
right?
dog.
Uh,
Jeez.
oh my good, like that didn't make any sense. But I won't get into spoilers. Another one that's out here is Don't Tell a Soul, a little indie flick that I was able to catch over the weekend. Again, like just what would be a $9.99 ticket at the theater. You know, I just get it, and now I have it, and now we can all watch it. It's a nice little thriller dealing with these two brothers who are trying to like rob a house in order to be able to get money for pharmaceuticals and just money in general, when they get caught by a police officer who chases them, falls in a hole. Are they just going to leave him there, or are they going to help him out and risk everything that they have? Look, I love Jack Dylan Grazer. I think he's going to have a bright future ahead of him. I think the kid is fantastic, and he is hilarious. He can hold the drama like he did in, I believe it was Beautiful Boy, when he played a young Timothy. And he's great in this movie as well, even if they don't give him a lot to do. It's not a fantastic movie, but it's a nice little thriller where Rainn Wilson also plays the person who is caught down below. I enjoyed it. I won't say it's a rent it for everybody, but once it's on streaming, definitely a movie that is enjoyable, worthy of passing the time. But the brother in this movie is played by Fionn Whithead, right? And it took me a while. We're like, that the dude from Bandersnatch?
Oh.
And I'll give him this. He goes into the role, but the man can't do an American accent. I'm sorry. He's trying to play this American boy. And the thing is, it's the lines that they give him. Oh, they just didn't work. There's some lines where he's talking
It's
about,
a
"Do
shame.
you believe in God?" And he's like, "I do. God and I made a deal. He goes his way, I go my way." And I was like, all right, it's tittling between being corny and
Yeah.
maybe working. And after the fourth one, Zach, I was like, all right, boy, you got to go back to doing the British movies. But Jack Dylan Grazer is great. Doesn't deliver completely on its premise, but it does go places. And I think once it's
Yeah.
streaming, a lot of people will be checking it out and maybe enjoying it. As a rent it right now, if you can, if you think it's worth the $4.99, I'm skeptical on selling you on it, but I do think that it was a fun little thing, and
Yeah.
I didn't mind catching it over the weekend. Another one
It's
that
funny
is go ahead.
sorry, it's funny that you're playing the trailer. I caught the Tribeca Film Festival tag there, and this sounds very much like a
Mm-hmm.
classic Tribeca movie to me, which I've described to you. It's like the festival where 3-star movies starring two people go. Uh, yeah, it's just like a
That's it,
mid-level.
right?
That sounds pretty cool.
I'm glad you caught that too, because I was like, Tribeca, the
Yeah,
festival where you go. Tribeca. But yeah,
for the okay movies
for
out
the
there.
okay movies out there. Another one that is out. We didn't get a link for this one over here, but I do want to shout it out mainly because I think that Helena Zengel, I literally just shouted her out in the Gotham video, is one of the best actresses that we have working today.
Hmm.
I am not renting it for 19.99 right now, but I would purchase it for 19.99. You know,
It's it's funny that you say that because I've heard a lot of people see this movie and be like, I have no idea who this actress is, but I now think she's amazing.
bro,
And you're coming into this movie
I'm coming into
with
this movie
that
for.
with with that love for her already.
Let me honor her. All right, like System Crash was so great. I'm looking at this poster and I'm going, oh my gosh. Look at her, you know, like Tom Hanks is in this movie, and I'm more excited to watch it because of her. But yeah, I'm gonna wait till this is available for purchase. I know this had a little bit of a theatrical run over in theaters wherever they were open, but it's now available to rent for 19.99. If people have caught it and people convince me, sure, I'll go check it out. But I do have an extra little thing to give up over here. We had just given out the Apple code for those of you watching and you want. I don't have a news of the world review, but I do have free news, I guess, to give out. For those of you who want to catch up on some extra news, I do have a little code right here. I just subscribed to Apple News last month as well. Again, I'm not sponsored by any of this stuff. This is just free codes to hook you up with free stuff. Bro, game changer. The fact that you don't have to, waste your 4 articles of the month and just can continue reading all of these interviews when it comes to filmmakers. It's been a game changer for me. I absolutely love it. But it is one of those services where they're just taking out some magazines, keeping some other ones. And I'm always for the idea of just having accessibility for people. But hey, it's going to become more difficult and difficult to get information and get news out there because I feel a lot of stuff is going to be behind a paywall. So if someone can benefit from this, there you go. Free little code over for Apple News to get you up to date on some behind the scenes when it comes to movies. But that's news of the world and all the VODs that we have. One Night in Miami is my winner when it comes to streaming services. And I said One Night in Miami. I meant Amazon Prime, but they're becoming interchangeable here. I think Prime's the winner when it comes to the original of this week. I absolutely loved this movie, from the cinematography, from the performances. I believe it is one of the best ensemble casts. We've talked about this over on Intercut. I know people prefer that movie that takes place in court. They say it's a drama, but it's really what was that movie called, Zach? There's 7 of them.
The trial of the Chicago 7.
One Night in Miami. Yeah, this is a really good one. Regina King killed it in this. I don't know if you have any extra thoughts to add. I'll be making a little LME on it. And like I said, we talked about it over on Intercut. Highly recommend it. One of the best.
Yeah, we talked about it on Intercut. I think we might have even talked about it at a live stream a couple of weeks ago. I forget, but it's a fascinating movie. I think a great dialogue-heavy film with these fascinating people. We've talked about the idea that sometimes you want to stick to the actual history, and sometimes you can use history to speak to something maybe greater. And I think this is a great example of the latter, where, the latter, because it's such a powerful imagination of what these powerful people, what these
Legends.
iconic figures could have challenged each other on, could have engaged in a conversation on. You and I could try and have some of these conversations and we'd have no authority to.
Mm-hmm.
But when you put the words in the mouths of Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X, it's like these really mean something. And she, shouts to Kenny Powers, who, as we've mentioned before,
Bro.
co-wrote Soul as well, but
Oh my
absolutely
goodness.
killed it with this script based on his own play. So yeah, the combination of him and Regina King, I think they made something really powerful.
This is the G right here,
Did you
man.
catch?
Oh,
Did you catch? Keith Calder responded to a question I had on Twitter.
what did it say?
I asked him. I asked him about the recreation of those iconic photos, and apparently that was something Regina was preaching in the production, that she wanted to recreate some iconic images in her film.
Damn.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
shouts to Regina's eye.
I want to see what else. I want to see him drop some more stills to see what else we missed. But yeah, I absolutely love this movie. I've been fascinating with everything that this man has been making. He did the play. He was able to do the screenplay, and then came in and did Soul, one of our favorites of the year as well that we talked about on a previous episode. But I absolutely love One Night in Miami. I'll be making a little LME review on that, and we've talked about it over on Intercut. You can catch it on Amazon Prime. It is one of the best that is streaming. And I put it up there with Promising Young Woman. Like both of those, I would pay $19.99 to watch One Night in Miami again, if it wasn't available on Prime. But it is, and you can watch it from the comfort of your own home. Let's move over to Netflix, the company that is touting how they have a movie every single week. They had a doc out. They had this little sci-fi action movie out, and then they had what I think was the biggest one, which was this little 4-part series, which got some thoughts on. But the first one that they had was this movie called, documentary, actually, Crack, Cocaine, Corruption, and Conspiracy. For those of you who haven't seen the movie Kill the Messenger, this is kind of, I guess, to that degree. Oh, look at that. I can't even play the trailer. Isn't that crazy? All right, I'm going to stick over here to just to the regular stuff. This is one where it's just a documentary breaking down everything that happened in the 80s, not only politically, but all of the, behind the scenes and how everything got to the point that it was, and how politically they were able to incarcerate a lot of people, but who may have been bringing these things in. There was a movie that previously came out a couple years ago called Kill the Messenger, and that was a movie that I know was out for like 3 weeks, and then they had to do a petition to bring it back because it called out the CIA's involvement in bringing in drugs from other countries. I find it to be a fascinating story, and I thought that doc does a good job at breaking down a lot of the behind the scenes, dealing with it from people who actually dealt the drugs, and just people who were either victims or were working as cops during that time. And a decent doc that breaks a lot of it down. So if you're interested in that, check that out. If you're interested in Kill the Messenger, I know that's also out on Netflix, so check that out.
Very cool.
Outside the Wire. This is a movie. It's taking place in the future where, we're dealing, and I believe so, in a time where we're going to not just have, everyone says androids out in war zones, but we're also dealing with drones a lot. And you have this like twofer of a movie where it's got all of these different ideas that it wants to focus on. For example, Anthony Mackie's this like, I was going to say commander. He literally says, I am the captain. He is the captain now, and he is also an AI kind of robotic thing. So you're dealing with that element when it comes to the army. But then you have this fellow over here who he deals with drones. So when he's getting interrogated after making what some may call a mistake, what some may call a defiant move, has he actually been in combat? If you're just playing, I don't want to say playing, if you're just controlling things from afar. And I think that's an interesting conversation. There's been movies like Eye in the Sky that I think break that down well. There have even been, Ender's Game would be a form of that from the YA standpoint. This is Netflix's viewpoint on it. It comes from a director who has made several movies, and if you see the quality of these movies, he keeps that same quality here. I don't think it's terrible, but it's one of those where what they're trying to talk about is more interesting than how they actually talk about it. I'll put it that way. But hey, it's one of their first rollouts of this year, dealing with these really big budgets. They were able to get Anthony Mackie. And I thought the first half was interesting, so I will give it that. Overall, just okay. I think we're going to be getting a lot of these Netflix movies that are just barely scratching the surface. And that seems to be the thing when it comes to a lot of action movies. I will trust Netflix when it comes to dramas, but when it comes to a lot of action movies, you know what we've been getting. So Outside the Wire, interesting ideas, sadly not that interesting of an execution. But Night Stalker, do you know anything about this show, Zach?
I know that is based on the same case as the HBO show that we talked about last year.
Is it? What's the HBO show?
I believe. What was it? It's the Golden, because it's the Golden State Killer, right?
I don't think it's the Golden State
Oh, it's
Killer.
not?
It's a completely different dude who, like, I had heard of this dude mainly because of like
Okay, so I'm wrong then.
his mug profile.
I thought it was the I'll Be Gone in the Dark murders, but apparently not.
No, and I don't think it's better than that. Maybe I am mistaken in it, but this is a dude who was caught. This is a dude who did some very heinous crimes, and it is a retelling in 4 parts about all of the disgusting stuff that he did. It is pitched as a horror, and I think we're getting into that point. I mean, we've already passed it. We've already had these discussions. At what point are you just making entertainment out of disgusting acts that happened in the past? At what point are you just glorifying the person? Is it fascinating? Yes. I think this was the #1 streamed show over on Netflix. It takes a lot of its information from the detectives who worked the case, and especially that man right there who you see. You know, they have a lot of behind-the-scenes footage from that time and how he was able to hunt him down. But this dude was disgusting. I'm not a person who likes to give these people the spotlight, but this was a sick, sick dude who I don't think even got the punishment he deserved for some sick, sick crimes. But hey, Netflix loves putting out documentaries. The director himself said, yes, we cut this up like a horror. Self-admitted. And it is. I think it's going to intrigue a lot of people. It is one of the sickest cases that has happened, especially in the LA area, and very notorious case. So 4 episodes out on Netflix, Night Stalker, The Hunt for a Serial Killer. You into these crime shows, Zach?
I mean, I think there are ones that do them well, but I think a lot of them can lure at the like vulgar details and kind of be a little bit indulgent in the horror of it. And from the sound of it, this doesn't sound like my preferred style of crime show. In fact, something that maybe I'd prefer is I'll Be Gone in the Dark, the HBO show, which I think takes a much more like victim-centric approach and investigative approach.
Yeah, they don't put them in the
at least from the
poster. Yeah. Night Stalker, that's out if you're curious of catching it. Let's get to the other streaming services that did all right. They did okay. Alone was a little movie that I enjoyed last, I want to say summer is when it came out. I rented this bad boy. Didn't regret it, but I wouldn't say rent it unless you were really curious on if the trailer really sells you. But it's definitely worth the stream, and I gave it 3 stars. This comes from a director who had already made this movie, but in a different language. So this is them remaking it, but in English. I thought Jules Wilcox did a great job. I think she even got hurt in the making of the movie. It pretty much just is her going on, I don't want to call it a road trip, but she is traveling, and while she is on this road, she comes across this guy who is out to get her. I'll just keep it at that. It's a very simple movie. That's why I don't want to say too much, because it's one of those where you're just experiencing what's going to happen next. Is it more in her head? Is it actually going to build up to be something a little bit bigger? But it is filled with really good performances. I thought it was very well directed. But I would say stream it because it doesn't live up to like this very big tension, even though if you catch it on Hulu, I don't think you're going to feel like it wasted your time. And I'm curious to see if anybody caught the original version of this. But do not confuse this with another movie called Alone, because there was like 7 Alone movies that came out last year. And one of them was, I believe, the remake. Well, not really a remake, but did you ever see #Alive? That was another zombie movie that was on Netflix. This is so #Alive is a zombie movie that's a South Korean flick. This is the American version of literally the exact same story, starring Tyler Posey. So there is like 47 Alone movies that have been out. So don't confuse it with Alone, or Alone. But Alone is out on Hulu. And I thought it was a decent little stream to catch about a traveler getting followed by the dude from, what's it called? What's the show on Netflix? Ozark. I think he's a pretty good actor. I think he's pretty intimidating. So he adds a lot to the tension in this movie. And I thought it was a pretty decent flick to catch. Over on streaming for Hulu.
Cool.
A big one that I want to get the chat involved in.
Uh-oh.
The big Disney Plus thing. Well, let me pull up my notes here because this is something that has just been everywhere. Zach, I know you have thoughts on this show.
WandaVision.
Well, let me not even call it a show. Let me tell you what they actually called it right here. We were able to catch the first 3 episodes, as well as I believe everybody else, on this action miniseries that's supposed to lead up to Doctor Strange 2. Feige called it a long-form epic series. Okay, I'm gonna call it an action miniseries, and where the first 3 episodes, I don't think you and I were wowed as completely. But again, it's 3 out of 9 episodes. 3 out of 9 episodes in which the entire budget of this thing comes out to $225 million. I believe one of the most expensive episodes of Game of Thrones was 15. Would be 25 if my math is correct. So this is the highest budget for a TV series. Obviously, Zach and I have been talking since the early days. Movies, TV shows, doesn't matter. Conveniently, Disney was ahead of it, and now they have everything out as these miniseries. It is bloggable over here on Letterboxd, as you can see. So it's technically a long-form movie. What did they tell the people at Quibi? We know you got a movie. Can you just chop it up and make it these bite-sized bits? Hey, instead of Wanda getting a Marvel movie, she got herself a Marvel show. Conveniently, everybody is at home. And Feige had said, if you want to keep up with Phase 4, you're going to have to watch the shows. And if you want to watch the movies, you got to have that Disney Plus account. And in order to have the Disney Plus account, you're going to have to watch the movies. The ecosystem they're building is worse than Apple's. But hey, Zach, why'd you hate this show?
My thoughts on it are kind of that I get that it's going for this kind of homage to a cornier, more naive form of television.
In the first 3 episodes?
At least so far in the first 3 episodes we've seen, the first episode in particular, or first 2 episodes in particular, are very reminiscent of a show like Bewitched. And I think, for people who love those classic sitcoms, maybe you'll find a little bit more to enjoy than I did in this. I think when you make a corny joke and then wink about how clever you are for making such a corny joke, you're not being clever, you're just being corny. And to me, that was my big problem with this show. I was just frustrated by how it reveled in being hammy and being broad rather than actually trying to be clever in its writing. There's a much dunked on review on Twitter that compared this to some of David Lynch's work, and I think the main difference between this and anything that David Lynch would do is that every single character is so much more boring than any person in a David Lynch movie. But I will say, I will give it, there are some clever elements to the show. One of the things that I appreciated was that when they do visual effects stuff, such as the engagement ring suddenly appearing on Wanda and Vision's fingers, that they do it in the style of that era. So it's not a perfect match cut the way that it would be on a 50s show. I also think, we don't know a lot of what's going to happen get on the show yet, and maybe it will evolve into something a little bit more interesting. But I do also think that maybe there's some credit to be given that it's not just a bland let's go chase down the bad guy show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at mixed reactions here. Some people in the chat saying it's overhyped. We have some people saying they really enjoyed them. So it's just the beginning of it, and there's a lot of hype for it because this is the first one. Netflix did their thing, but this is their first one under the Disney Plus banner. It's gonna be. They're telling us, tell us how you really feel, Zach. How do you really feel? Look, the first 3 ones, I didn't love them either, but I know that, again, looking at the budget to the show, looking at this as well. Let me pull this up over here. Did you know it was filmed in front of a live studio audience? I had no idea that they'd even done that, but they supposedly did. I'm curious to see how many NDAs they had there, because how would you want that to leak? Especially because, again, this is supposed to not only set up Phase 4, but go right into Doctor Strange 2. So I'm curious to see how it works out. We were sent the first 3 episodes through the press thing. And what do you think about the press thing that they give us? I'm not going to pull it up here because they literally tell you. They like make you sign with your blood. It's like a blood pack just to watch these things. So I'm curious to see how they had a bunch of people there live.
Yeah, I mean, I look, they're obviously putting a lot of money into the show, as people are talking about in the chat, that it's the most expensive TV show produced. So they want to make sure there's a certain amount of like secrecy around this. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
It's strange, but I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw you just pulled up that chat from YRG. Or actually, there was another thing that he mentioned, that episode 3 is where the show really picks up, and I would agree with that too. I think the looming mysteries surrounding the show start to really reveal themselves in episode 3, and that was the most intriguing thing that happened to me for me in the first 3 episodes.
So I can't rate this show. Obviously, it's just starting. We're just mentioning it here on the streams. I'm curious to see where they take it. I really like the Vision comic, and I love the House of M storyline, so I am excited where it goes. I know that people are, like anyone saying overhyped is stupid. It just started. Yeah, but it still can be overhyped because there is a lot of attention that's going to go to this. I think it's going to deliver with it. They wouldn't put this much money to it, and it's going to be the start of Phase 4. I just think it's going to be interesting to see a majority of this new phase take place on Disney Plus through shows.
The other thing to remember. The other thing to remember is that, this isn't a movie where you sit down and you watch the whole thing. This is a show, and not in the Netflix model either. It's a weekly released show. Mm-hmm. So at some point they have to keep people coming back for more. And I'm curious to see how quickly they'll deliver some of the more interesting Easter eggy elements that will maybe keep more people involved.
I love the people who rate it and go, how can people be giving this a negative review? It's not even done. 5 stars. But WandaVision, the inception of all of these new, let me pull it up again, all of these new long-form epic series, according to Feige, that will be going on Disney+. It's the new way of consuming media. We know this. They're turning the movies into miniseries, into TV shows, and hey, perfect time while everyone is at home, and it's going to be boosting those numbers like hell. Because hey, The Boys did that. Amazon did that for The Boys, and they had people come back every week. It's a Marvel show. Why have someone come in 1 week when you can now, instead of one WandaVision movie, you have them coming back for every WandaVision episode? So let's see how it goes. It's going to be very interesting. But moving on over to HBO, we had a couple of ones that I've had on my watch list for a while, and a couple that we already made some videos for. So let's talk about The King of Staten Island. Don't really care to talk about Lockdown, but The King of Staten Island, haven't mentioned it on here on the channel, but we have an entire Let Us Explain over on Intercut. It is the newest movie from Judd Apatow that I'm sure a lot of people were not going to rent for $19.99. Like, early on, it was $19.99 just to rent. 48 hours, it was gone. Now you can purchase it for $14.99 or get $14.99 subscription to HBO Max and catch this and a bunch of other stuff. And I think for that, it's definitely worth it. Did you like it a little bit more than I did, or did you like it less than I did?
I think I even liked it a little bit less than you did. I thought it was fine.
I see you here. I have a star less, yeah.
I'm traditionally a Judd Apatow fan. I think there was maybe a little bit less than I was hoping for from this movie, given that I think Pete Davidson is also a really interesting person to build a movie around. I think when we talked on the Let Us Explain, we both felt like the movie really picks up a little bit late. It almost takes like an hour or so to get into the real movie. And I don't know. That said, there are elements that I liked, and I've also heard from a lot of people who really loved this film. So don't let our mixed reviews completely turn you off of the film, because there are people who like this film, and I think we even got messages from people who put it in their top 10s for this year. So
nice.
If it seems like something that's up your alley, I would definitely look into that now that it's going to be more easily available.
Yeah. If you're looking for the comedy, I think Pete Davidson has a better comedy that it's out on Hulu. I would highly recommend going to check out Big Time Adolescence. That's the funnier movie. This one definitely is more on the drama side, be it, the story of Pete Davidson, kind of autobiographical. And like Zach said, that meat doesn't come until the second half of the movie. So It's out on HBO Max. Definitely check it out if it has interested you. Someone had just asked, what does HBO have without GOT? I think there's a lot of other stuff, but in terms of movie, oh my goodness. Locked Down, a movie out on HBO proving that, hey, it's not just Netflix. HBO can also get really, really big actors like Anne Hathaway and Chiwetel Ejiofor and put them in something. This is one where they're going through troubles in their relationship, but they're also looking to commit a heist. Considering Anne Hathaway had a heist movie not too long ago with Ocean's 8, doesn't live up to that. Considering that we are going to get dozens upon dozens of COVID quarantine movies, doesn't live up to that. But it is, showcasing that HBO Max is just trying to compete with Netflix and trying to just get content out there. Wasn't a big fan of this one. I was dozing in and out of this as well. But yeah, it's on HBO Max. I do not recommend it. Instead, I would say check out these other ones that I have on my watch list that have been on there for a while. It's a lot of animes, which is what I'm going to wrap up here. Ride Your Wave was one that was on my watch list like a long time ago, along with The Night is Short. Turns out they are the same director. I have not gotten into a lot of this man's work, so I am excited that HBO is picking up a lot of this stuff. I know that they had, it's not even pulling up here. Pull this up. Sorry about that. These two movies right here, Ride Your Wave and Night is Short, both from the same director, posted up on HBO Max. I know they had a little deal with Crunchyroll, but that kind of, I believe, fell through. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're mixing things, because I still believe they have the Studio Ghibli partnerships. So
Yeah,
we've had friends who like this. Ash really liked this movie. I trust his opinion when it comes to animes. And these have been on my watch list for a long time. Those are movies that I'll be checking out, along with the director's cut. I know this isn't the director's cut for it, but ReZero was the first thing I added when I got HBO Max. I've just been waiting to have the 10 hours to watch it. Well, the director's cut is 13 hours long. So now I just got to find a period either before Sundance or after Sundance to start it. This is one that a lot of the LME listeners have recommended to me when it comes to anime. I'm always being asked, watch anime, watch anime. So definitely I'll be having this one on my radar. ReZero, the director's cut, Night is Short, Walk on a Girl, and Ride Your Wave, movies that I have on there. But I wanted to give another thing for free. So those of you who are watching and have been catching up with the streams. We're giving out a lot of other codes earlier on. There was that Apple News one for whoever snatched it. I consider HBO and Showtime kind of at the same level. I don't have an HBO Max code to give out, but I might have one next week. But I do have a Showtime one. So anybody watching in the chat, whoever gets it, there's a little Showtime subscription for you. I believe you get it for 30 days or something. And then it is a reduced price, man. I just got Showtime, so the only thing I ask for whoever gets this code and redeems it, hook me up with some recommendations, because I am just adding more and more and more of these things to my streaming list. It's getting bigger and bigger, but I know Showtime has a lot of good hits, and there's going to be a lot of exclusives that are going to be coming to Showtime. But the thing that sucks about it, bro, is that they tell you, sign up now, or we're going to raise the price on you. So literally, if you want to be grandfathered in, you have to make the decision to give them the $4.99 like for the rest of your life. And that's an insane thing to think about, that if at any point you cancel it, you will never be able to go back to that $4.99 standpoint. So for anyone who was interested in Showtime, there you go. Wanted to hook you guys up with some extra stuff to get some free movies, because that way it's not just one movie to watch, it's a whole collection of movies on that streaming service. But recapping some of the stuff that we had, virtual rentals, I know those cost more because they're individual, but they had the best releases. I'm sure that they will be out on some streaming services soon. But in terms of streaming services, Prime had the best movie with One Night in Miami. Netflix is still producing the most content, but Hulu, Disney, and HBO Max still coming in strong during this week. But let's get to the fun part of the show. The chat. What questions do we got today to talk about?
All right, and just a reminder, you can still send in some more questions. I'll be pulling them off of the chat. Let's start out with a couple questions that Devesh sent in. Any film where the impact was heightened after researching over a specific aspect of it? Is there anything that you maybe looked into a little bit after you watched the movie and that gave you a whole different appreciation for that film?
I'm not sure if one comes up to mind for you, but I saw a movie at Sundance. I don't know, it's not even pulling up here. I guess it's because it's The Souvenir. Oh, there we go. A movie that I was just completely and utterly bored by when I saw it at Sundance. But then it's not that I researched it more. It's just that I guess I was in an argument with my own girl, so then I watched this. I tend to do my research before I get my comments out, especially as more the channel grows. I know to get the filmmaker's perspective and everything. And this was one that I knew a lot about the filmmaker. This comes from Joanna Hogg, who a lot of critics really enjoy their work. But it stars Honor Swinton, the daughter of who I believe is top 3 actresses working today of the past decade. Tilda, who I don't think she's in this movie, but it is kind of autobiographical, and it was supposed to be done in 2 parts, as you can see right there. Part 2 was supposed to come out starring Robert Pattinson, but I believe it was the Batman deal that had him drop out. So I guess I'm answering the question in terms of like, yeah, I guess I enjoyed the movie from a different perspective once I guess was arguing the way they argued in the movie.
Yeah. Just to expound on that, I think I just saw on Twitter, maybe even today, Joanna Hogg said that not only did she film The Souvenir Part 2, that she filmed another movie starring Tilda Swinton. So both of those will probably be coming out in 2021.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Sounds fire.
For me to answer Devesh's question, I think it's the movies that are kind of puzzle boxes that maybe when you don't fully understand to what extent they're like intricately put together puzzles, that's when I really can appreciate a movie more. Like I look at a movie like Enemy, where I thought it was really cool, but I don't know how much I picked up, and then I went to actually dive into it and saw that there was a lot more that I didn't actually see on the surface.
Sometimes you forget what you rate a movie. You know it was high.
Yeah.
You forget how high. Enemy is my favorite movie from Denis Villeneuve, one of my favorite directors working today, and that says a lot. So I agree with you, Zach, a lot. I love Enemy. So yeah, Devesh, hopefully that answers your question right there. What else we got?
He had another question that I liked, which was stolen from Film Twitter, but whatever. Perfect needle drop moments in a movie. Obviously, there's millions out there to choose from, and like I feel like the classic one that I would pick is the "Where's My Mind" drop in Fight Club. But I think I saw Chase on Twitter talking about the Wonderwall drop in Mommy recently.
Ooh, I saw a lot of people bringing that up. Kind of a spoiler, so I won't say how that scene plays out, but you like, oh.
What a moment.
No. Yeah, oh. I love Mommy. Dude, it took me 2 years to find a copy of this movie. Finally had it in my local library. They probably shipped it from Canada themselves. And it blew me away. This is like early on when I was catching up on all of Xavier Dolan's films. Yeah, that one's fantastic. I love how he uses music in that movie. My answer would have been When They See Us. Just the way that Ava DuVernay is able to do a mic drop at every single episode at the end of it, but not just like for the hype of it, but like just laying down the hammer. I thought she did a fantastic job in that movie. I'd say Lovers Rock, but I don't. That's just cheating. That's the movie, you know. So
yeah.
But yeah.
Nico Aquino said thoughts on what film will win Best Picture. We also got a question from Tushar asking if we think Trial of Chicago 7 is going to win Best Picture, because that seems to be the discord at the moment. But there's a lot of hype around Nomadland, of course. I don't know if you have any thoughts on what potentially will be our Best Picture front runner at the Oscars right now. You know, obviously there's still a lot to come, and we need, of course, like the Writers Guild and Directors Guild and Golden Globes to all have their say. But how are you feeling right now?
I think it's Nomadland, man. It won the Gotham. It won the critics. Yeah? I mean, this is why I paid early to catch it for $15 on virtual when I had the chance. And now I believe you were the one who let me know about this. They are going to be releasing it in theaters in February, but also on Hulu. So that's dope for people who want to catch it. Honestly, I think I may raise it up to half a star more, because Chloe Zhao is one of the best directors working today. And the one thing that I am rooting for in this movie is her to win Best Director. I think that's the
Mhm.
best aspect of this movie, because she absolutely kills it the way that she's able to have professionals and non-professionals working, especially actors who are playing versions of themselves, who are actual real nomads. I think this is going to be the one that's going to sweep it all the way. But personally, the one that I hope gets a nomination, the one that I hope wins, is a little movie called Minari.
Minari, yes.
So
Like right now, that seems to be kind of like looming in the distance. I feel like because it hasn't had its full release, there's like a Minari
yeah,
discourse that hasn't happened yet. That
yeah.
it doesn't have like enough people talking about it. But even just the Golden Globe snub, I think, got more people talking and thinking and advocating for the movie. I'm hoping that's just like a momentum that grows because, there's sometimes movies peak a little bit early in Oscar season, and I'm wondering if that's what's going to happen to a movie like Trial of Chicago 7 or Nomadland in particular, that maybe it's going to be a real big hit with the critics, but just kind of an also ran when it comes to the guilds and the Oscars. So to me, I wonder if maybe a movie like Ma Rainey's Black Bottom
Mm.
sneaks up in the rankings, or as we said, Minari, once that one's out. The one hammer waiting in the distance is Judas and the Black Messiah, which has
Got
been
picked up on
getting
Sundance.
pretty rave reviews. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I would be very happy if that movie turns out to be great.
Bro, I had no idea our boy worked on this movie. Do you know that?
Oh, Sev? Yeah,
Sev
he's been
worked on the
talking
movie.
about
I
this
had
one.
no idea. I was like, oh my goodness, he's having a good run. He's having a good run with it. So yeah, he's gonna have a killer 2021. I'm excited for this one. Zach hit me up when he said, "Yo, they dropped the Sundance tickets." So thankful that it's on a day where we don't have 47 movies playing. So if you are interested in catching this one, I'm sure that they're going to be releasing it in probably VODs and stuff. HBO is supposed to have this, right? Because it is a Warner Bros. Movie. So if you got HBO Max, you will be able to get it in the comfort of your own home, but you can catch it early because it's going to be playing at Sundance. I don't know if they sold out yet, so don't get too hyped on it. But Judas and the Black Messiah will be playing at Sundance if people want to catch it a little bit early.
Speaking of Sundance, these aren't movies that necessarily just came out, but I know there's a lot of people in the chat who are excited for Sundance. Some of them have bought Sundance tickets. And I wanted to actually see if you wanted to take a second to shout out a couple shorts that are readily
Ooh.
available right now in A Concerto is a Conversation and Doublespeak,
Mm-hmm.
which will both be playing Sundance. So, if people want to get in on that early, you can search for A Concerto as a Conversation and find the New York Times link to what I thought was a beautifully put together short documentary about a Black composer, but also about his family. And it's a conversation between him and his grandfather, and sort of gives you like a bit of their life story and a bit of like the history of Black success in America. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really beautiful film. One of the most compellingly shot documentaries I've seen in quite some time. I think they use that Errol Morris technology where the people can look directly into the lens.
Yes.
And they do it in a way that I don't know if I've ever seen, where it's used to show a conversation.
Very good.
So beautiful. And then I saw you pull up Doublespeak too, but I don't know if you had thoughts on either of these.
Yeah, again, thank you for bringing them up because that was one of the things that I had wanted to mention. Like, look at this, dude. It is available to watch on the New York Times website, on Vimeo, on Facebook. Like, take your poison. This is a Sundance short that you have available before the festival even starts. And this was actually the first short that I caught. Right now, it is actually one of my favorites. I really enjoyed this one, and like you said, not only the techniques that they use, but this conversation that's happening between a grandchild and his grandfather. Not only what he went through, but like there's a final line in this that is stuck with me that comes from the grandpa. That makes it one that I would highly recommend. It's only 13 minutes. You can check it out. Like I said, literally Google it and it's right there for you. One of the best Sundance shorts that it's coming out. And then this other one, I'm not sure. Did you get a chance to see Doublespeak?
Yeah, which also I thought was fascinating. It sort of talks about sexual harassment in the workplace and the difficulty over being in a position to seek litigation in that situation, like uncomfortable position that it puts a person in.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it reminded me a lot of The Assistant,
Mm.
from last year, the Kitty Green
Yep.
film,
Yep. I
in
agree.
the kind of in the not overbearing way that it gives you like a workplace dynamic and the uncomfortable tension lurking there. So does that whole vibe in like a 9-minute package. It's pretty incredible.
Agreed. I see someone hyping up Sam Levinson right here. Sam Levinson going to be the next big director. I think Malcolm and Marie, if Euphoria didn't already do it, but I think a lot of the cast and the show itself got the attention for Euphoria, rightfully so. But even with his previous Assassination Nation and a lot of the other works that he has done, and even producing, Malcolm and Marie, I think is going to be the one that's really going to put him on the spot. It is going to be eligible for Oscars, no?
Yeah, and it seems like they're giving it a big Oscar push too, which is, maybe that's a good point. That is another potential late contender that has been getting good reviews. I saw some people saying that Zendaya rather should be getting penciled into your top 5 actresses. So, who knows? There's other movies still lurking on the horizon. That's the thing I was kind of not expecting. I thought more studios would be putting out their movies the traditional Oscar season of like October, November, December. But there's a few things like Judas and the Black Messiah, like Malcolm and Marie, like The
Mm-hmm.
Mauritanian, I think is another one
Yes.
that's just kind of waiting and is going to wait until that end of February Oscar deadline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to see that. Devesh had asked, "Do you think any animated films will be put in the Best Pick category for the Oscars?" Soul and Wolfwalkers, I think, are the two that may have the ability to do so. When the nominations drop, whichever one of those is able to pick one up, I guess answers the animated category. I am hoping it's Wolfwalkers, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Tashara had a question earlier. Thoughts on buying digital platforms such as iTunes versus physical media as you get to own it, whereas with iTunes you only have access for while they have licensing fees. This is a topic that we've talked about occasionally, I think either on the live stream or on Intercut. And we are both fans of physical media whenever that is possible.
Just bought the
I think
Matrix.
we're both getting building up our Criterion collections and such. And I personally, when I was younger, like throughout high school and such, I had a huge DVD collection that I
Mm-hmm.
treasured. I haven't bought as much recently just because I don't do as much revisiting of older movies, and I'm not as much of a stickler, I guess, as I once was. But you know, there are some benefits to the digital collection too, when obviously, it's a more you don't quite own it in the same way. It is more like a long-term rental. But I don't know if you want to talk about Vudu at all, but Vudu is we've been using that a little bit, and it's a very easy platform to use.
Absolutely love Voodoo. I mean, that's my thing of choice, because you have all of these different avenues right here. I guess Apple was not popping up. And while I do think that Apple may have some of the best streaming, like I really like how they, do their picture. Amazon, I think, is absolute trash when it comes to cutting the ratios and stuff. Fandango now and AMC on demand, it'll be interesting. I personally believe that Fandango now and AMC on demand, what they should be doing, specifically AMC because of the stubs, they should be opening it up to you being able to rent 3 virtual movies a month. Because if you're paying that like 20 something dollars, right? It may not be able to
Right.
be the 3 movies a week, but I think they may be able to work something out. And I personally see that as dropping the ball. It's like when Broadway say the show must go on and nothing has happened. So, like, the same thing is happening here when it comes to Fandango, when it comes to AMC On Demand. All of these theaters who always scoffed at streaming and kind of dropped the ball when it comes to this. But I think Vudu has been one of the biggest ones. That's where I tend to do my collection. But I always seek out getting the physical copy and then hoping that there is a digital copy on there as well. That way I have my physical copy. I believe the quality is better, especially when you have like a really good system. But I like having a digital collection that when I go anywhere, I can pull up the movie. I literally just sometimes open up my Vudu, my movies anywhere, and just start watching Tom Cruise jumping out of a plane in the last Mission Impossible movie. So I do like the ease of access that comes with digital, but I will always prefer having a physical copy.
Yeah, and I don't mean to sound I don't know even what the word would be, but like flippant or like wasteful, I guess. But also, I think the price point of a movie
Hmm.
of $20 or what have you is something that maybe when I was a little bit younger is something that felt like a huger investment than I do now.
Yeah,
And I'm not if I can buy a movie on a service like Vudu and I can watch it 2 or 3 times over the course of 3 years, like that's a decent return on my investment. You know what I
literally.
mean? I'm not going to be heartbroken if that movie goes away. I obviously would prefer to have a physical copy if I could, but sometimes that's not always the easiest or best option you
To
got.
add to that, like I just bought the Matrix trilogy because HBO Max is gonna drop Matrix 4 this year, so they decided let's take out 1, 2, and 3. So because those are gone, you'd have to purchase it, and you could buy the digital copy. The digital copy is $35 compared to what would be this at Best Buy, right? So now you can actually purchase this and get all of the behind the scenes. And that's one of the biggest reasons I enjoy it. There are a lot of digital copies that don't come with all of this behind the scenes, and that to me is some of the best stuff.
Shout out to Andres in the chat who just asked us, when it comes to something like the Criterion Collection, do you guys buy movies you haven't seen yet but are highly regarded, recommended?
Yes, if it's like I bought Barry Lyndon, right? Because I didn't
Right.
catch that one. Yo, speaking, this man said Criterion Collection. Did you see Criterion Collection? When we're looking at memories, they just announced Bong Joon Ho's Memories of Murder for Criterion coming in
Woo!
April. This is a movie I wanted to watch as Parasite was going to come out. I have not seen this movie since I found it at my local library years when The Host came out. A year after
Right.
The Host came out. When I'd caught that movie, I started watching all the other ones and it took me forever to find it. And then there was no digital copy. Literally a couple months ago, they just dropped the digital copy. Now Criterion has picked it up. Sexy, sexy cover. I'm really excited to see what special features they're going to have with this because he had some dope special features with the Parasite one. That's one that I'm really excited for to catch. But I do like Criterion Channel has a lot of dope stuff to catch. But when it comes to something that may not be on there, and if I'm going to seek it out, there's a certain point where if I'm going to rent it, I don't mind, finding the best copy of it. For me, if it's Criterion or if it's a Steelbook, I will choose that and pay the extra, even if I do have a good digital sale on something.
Hmm. Circling back to what Andres said, I feel like I'm about 50-50, maybe like 60-40 when it comes to what I would do when coming to Criterion, like buying a movie I've seen versus something that is just highly regarded. I'm a little bit, I lean more towards buying things I've already seen. Because Criterion tends to come with some special features, and plus
Mm-hmm.
it's such a beautiful looking box. It feels like a nice way to honor a movie that you love. But I have bought a few things that I didn't see before I bought them. I bought Decalogue not too long ago
Ooh,
before without having seen it. And when I tend to do that, it's
damn.
because I either think like it's it's probably important enough on its own that I don't need to love it to feel like justified in owning it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Like a movie like Barry Lyndon is a great example. A movie that I love that I own, Do the Right Thing. If I didn't see that, I feel like that's important enough that I'd be happy to have that in my collection, if you know what I'm saying.
yeah, you have to own that. You want to make sure you have a copy. That when the
Yeah.
internet goes down and it's all over, that you could still in the apocalypse play your version of it. But oh yeah, that's like, it's
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 like
a collection.
it's
It's
like
a true
Catcher in the
collection.
Rye. You have to have a copy of Catcher in the Rye, and you have to
Yeah,
have a DVD of Do the Right Thing.
I keep my copy of Dune front and center when people come over. But yeah, no, I mean that's the thing about the Criterion Collection, and then they make it so difficult for you, man. It's like a drug for some people. When you see that spine at the bottom, and you're like, oh man, I gotta fill in those numbers. It can get crazy, but that's why I appreciate that they've also had the Criterion channel, so you can actually catch more of these classics without having to drop or wait. Not having to drop those $50 or wait for the Barnes and Noble sale, but no, I do a mixture of both as well. Someone had asked,
Too sharp. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I had this one right here. How do you keep track of upcoming movies, magazine
Hmm.
subscriptions? I do a lot of my stuff. Like, let's see, I'm gonna click right here and we'll go to Just Watch. This is a service that I really like to use. Right now, it is free. Like, this is one of those, again, No promo here. I just love it. This is one of those where for right now it is free. You can add all of your subscription services up here. As you can see, you can click one and see what has come out just for that. You can put filters on it. So if you don't want to see everything that's come out on Hulu and you just want to see the TV shows, you just want to see the movies, do you want to cut down on what the dates are for when what's new and stuff? This has been a great service. This is what I use when I'm compiling everything for this week and what I want to talk about for what's going on my watch list. But then I also use a lot of theater apps. So when it comes to like, the Fandango app, when it comes to Flickster, and just a couple of different sites, I'm just always reading to see what else is new because there's always like ones that go through the cracks. So for streaming, Just Watch, can't recommend it enough. And then a variety of different things for anything that's coming out in theaters, which has obviously been paused for a little bit, but I recommend this.
Yeah, it's a great one.
All right, let's answer two more.
Two more questions. All right. Tushar asked, which was it? Oh, if you could choose an Oscar winner for this year in any category, who would it be, and why is it Minari?
That's good. Because it's great, but like I said, I do wish. Other than Chloe Zhao, I honestly, Never Really, Sometimes Always. That would be my second option for when it comes to directing. Those are ones that I'm rooting for there. I don't know if I have a shoe in terms of the acting was like I want from The Father, which I know you haven't had the chance to catch yet, but I do think Anthony Hopkins has it in the bag. But I believe this is going to be one of those years where, regardless of who gets nominated, from Chadwick to hopefully Stephen Yeun from Minari to who else is from the Five
Riz
Bloods.
Ahmed.
Riz Ahmed too for Sound of Metal. I'm okay with any
Kingsley
of them.
Ben-Adir is also going for lead actor for One Night in Miami.
Lead. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
I think he's lead and everybody else is supporting.
All right. So, yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting award show, and I believe the short list appears February 5th, so we are approaching it.
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like it's weird to pick out a winner this early. Like I when it's this early, I'm kind of thinking like what can just get nominated. And so early in the year, I think we were really hopeful that Never Really Sometimes Always was going to be a big Oscar contender because we thought there weren't going to be a lot of big movies released, and there's been like a decent share of Oscar quality movies released, so it's not Never Really Sometimes Always way down the totem pole. But I agree with you. I really hope that movie is not forgotten, whether that's in the screenplay category or maybe in cinematography. I'd also go with Palm Springs in screenplay. I hope that gets a nomination because I think it's a really great comedy, and comedy screenplays tend to not get nominated by the Oscars, but they're really hard to write, so they should be rewarded.
That's a good one.
So that's what I'm thinking, but also Stephen Yeun for Minari.
Easily. Please. Let's wrap it up with Nico's final question. What areas do you think Letterboxd, the site that we're always on these streams, logging movies, should improve on? It's great as it is now, but it could always be better. That's an interesting question because I've never thought about what could be better when it comes to the site. My biggest concern has been I don't want it to be diminished, right? Like Twitter early on, before all the ads that bombard you, before just the ecosystem changes when you have more people. And I think the bigger that it grows, I think there's going to be financial decisions that need to be made. And it's just going to be a completely different type of environment, I think people use it for different things. Some people just like leaving a small review. Some people like leaving a dissertation. But I think that's what makes it fascinating. I do worry sometimes that with the pushes to like the HQ thing, they can go either way, when it starts to have a lot more ads. When you click on a page, I really like that you get to see what the activity from people you follow is. But I worry that we're going to get to a point where it's going to be promoted posts, or things that push the movie from outlets that are bigger. Or even studios, which I sometimes worry about because I love Neon and they sponsor a lot of the stuff that they have for their end of the year lists. But I also want it to be, I don't know, it must remain a free market. Letterboxd must remain for all. But I love it as it is. I can't think of anything off the top that I would add. I don't know about you, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty comprehensive site. It's really easy to use. I love being able to go to the films that I've seen and sort them by year, by decade, by genre, by streaming service that they're on. If you are a subscriber to Letterboxd, which I became recently because the site is so good and they've earned my $19 a year.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as things they could improve on, one thing that I was trying to do recently that I found some difficulty doing was sorting by release country, because
Okay.
sometimes it'd be cool if you could see like this is every Indian film I've seen, this is every South African film I've seen. But I think
Okay.
part of the struggle with that is a lot of international films are co-financed in different countries, so you get a movie that ostensibly is a Danish film, but it's a Danish film co-produced by a Swedish company, co-produced by a
Mm-hmm.
Norwegian company, distributed by a French company, and it comes up in all of those countries when you search for it. So, and maybe the solution is to look by language or something, but even that doesn't necessarily eliminate certain things. I don't know. That was the one thing that came to mind for me.
That's a good one. Tashar even had a good one, as well as a super chat. Appreciate that right there, chatting out the Intercut Pie. But he had mentioned having a chat option on Letterboxd. So even more than comments, it would kind of be like maybe a Discord server that they have on there. Could be something. But we saw what happened with IMDb, and I got a
Mhm.
little too carried away. So that would be something, again, that they would have to monitor ahead of time. And it may not be what we want it to be. Devesh
Yeah,
had said to fix a search engine,
that's
which...
actually.
Go ahead.
Oh, no. That talking about the vicious thing first. That's absolutely true. The search engine's very weird. I
How
find it
many times
works.
do you see me search for something and it gives me something else, you know?
The weird thing is, I find when you're adding a new movie, it's very good about like you type in 3 letters and the movie that you want comes up. But when you
Yeah,
search for a movie, it doesn't work at all. Which
makes no
I
sense.
don't know. Are those different engines? But that's a
Uh,
good point. Yeah, the search engine doesn't work great on Letterboxd. And to talk about Tushar's point, that is a good. Not just the chat, but the comments section isn't great on
yeah,
Letterboxd. It could
it's not.
it could definitely be improved.
My last one, and then we'll wrap up for what our highlights were for this week. I wish that when you logged a movie, you didn't have to tell the entire world when you watched it. Like
You don't.
I don't want to keep a diary. I'm logging it. I don't like what, and it doesn't. So at the end of the year, we pay for the ability to be able to have that awesome wrap up of the year. And then it tells you you've seen like 42 movies because those are the only ones you logged in. I wish that it would be sorted. I wish it could be sorted out differently. But again, this is what I'm talking about. That is an option that is made because it pushes more promo. It is a thing that only is possible or is made possible because, as you can see here, unless you publish it to your diary, which you can see right there on my right side, then it won't appear here at the front. It just gets logged away in the back. So I have rated a couple movies, but you will not see them appear here, right? You would have to click all, then come to this, and then at some point they appear, not even when you logged them. Or sorry, not logged, when you rated them. But whenever it came out, and you'd have to find it, unless you personally log it in your diary. So I like the diary. I just don't like how it's like the biggest thing that's enforced. So yeah, I guess that would be one thing that I would add to it. But overall, I love the site. I hope it continues to be something that a lot more
Same.
people use. I grew up using IMDb. I love the lists that were in IMDb, and I love how anybody here can create their own lists, and the lists go crazy, and they're insane. But just being able to keep track with what your friends are watching, I think is a really cool thing. Um,
Do you have a favorite Letterboxd review?
yeah, some guy reviewed Sorry We Missed You and called it a Jeff Bezos snuff film. I thought that was pretty funny. Not one off the top.
Yeah,
Do you?
yeah. A lot of people mention the Joker review. This happened to my friend Eric, which is
Bro,
pretty great.
that's right. Oh, that's a
Um,
classic.
it's a classic. I really love. I think Willow McClaney or Matley, something like that, did a review of Lava, talking about how much Ringo Starr would love that short
Mm-hmm.
film. That one is easily my favorite.
You said there's some bangers in there, you know? And I
Yep.
guess I'll wrap this final thoughts by saying, a lot of people have been pushing the fact that you should, if you have a following on Letterboxd, you should not be considered for film festivals. That'll be an argument that always continues. But once you start seeing the film festivals on Letterboxd, once you start realizing that press is supposed to be something that can push the film, I don't know. You would think a social media platform where it is nothing but film and where people have thousands of followers would be something that these film festivals could really use as press, but That's just me. We will see how that progresses into the future. But I just love this platform. I think it's a really cool tool that allows us to still stay connected, especially in this past year. It's been cool to see what people have been watching, people's thoughts with it. And it's a great way to log your movies. And what we logged today were some really great movies. I believe VODs and the rentals had some of the best stuff. Promising Young Woman is a thriller I would highly recommend. It's worth the $19.99. Fantastic docs that you can see right here that I'm highlighting. Assassins, A Casa My Home, MLK FBI, Some Kind of Heaven. They're killing it. One Night in Miami was the winner for me in terms of the best streaming service with Amazon Prime. Netflix was all right. Disney's doing its thing. And HBO's got stuff as well, but we'll see who's going to be the winner next week. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on any of the films that we got here. Let us know anything else when it comes to movies, questions that we can answer maybe on the Intercut podcast or anywhere else, really. Hit us up on Twitter, all that good stuff. Last chance, if anybody didn't catch the code, I'm sure they did. Again, I just ask, let me know what you're watching. Hook up me with some recommendations. I'm willing to listen. But thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for watching. And until next time, we'll see you guys later. Take care.